this morning, sun's a bit hazy. Checking the forecast, things looking crazy. A storm on the horizon, the pressure is low. Gotta get moving, put on a show. The news is all buzzing, state of alert, but we've got a plan, we're ready to work. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. See a little fire or a rising flood, we're a well-oiled machine, we're running in the mud. From the city hall meetings to the rescue teams, turning worst case scenarios into hopeful dreams. We're training the people, we're stocking the gear, we're the team you can count on when trouble is near. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. It's more than a job, it's a calling, you see. Prepared for the present and what's yet to be. Every second counts, we're ready to react for our communities. We're making an impact. Emergency Management Associates, we're here for the crisis, we're here for the fates. From the first sign of trouble to the all clear sign, we're on the front lines, we're one of a kind. Emergency Management Associates, we're the calm in the chaos, we're opening gates, connecting the dots and making the calls. We're picking you up when you're starting to fall. Yeah, we're picking you up, we're ready to go. EMA, let's get this show on the road.
Let's do it too, guys. Let's kick the can. Let's make it happen. My name is Ron Tyler. I'm the president and chairman of Emergency Management Associates. We're on the air right now for you, 24/7 if need be. We've done it before when we've had major earthquakes. We've been on the air nearly 24 hours in a row, and we're possibly going to do it again in the near future. Things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. We're coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina, guys. That's where we're at. Guys, we want to make sure you know we want you here. We need you here because we need to give you the information you need to have because something is incoming. We're going to have earthquakes. We're going to have hurricanes. We're going to have severe thunderstorms. And right now, Illinois into Indiana are having severe thunderstorms, and some of them have had tornadoes as well. Okay, beware of that. The Midwest is under many tornado watches and warnings right now as we speak. Going forward, we're going to continue talking about earthquakes today. We're also going to talk about something that I hate to talk about, completely hate to talk about. That is an officer down. Officer down. May is the Police Officer Memorial Month, and specifically the week of May 15th is Police Officer Memorial Weekend. Police Officer Memorial Week, I should say. Now, we did have a police officer that got killed on the 15th in Alabama. Citronella, Alabama, guys, unfortunately. Very unfortunately. Let me put a picture of him up and I'll tell you about him directly. I've been there. I've been there, guys. I'm sorry his face got cut off here. Dadgummit. This is a man named Officer Owens. Dylan Owens is his name. Dylan Owens, with the Citronella, Alabama Police Department. He was killed on Wednesday. It was a single vehicle accident. His patrol unit went off the roadway and struck a tree, killing the officer. Very unfortunate. This is only the second time I've had report a police officer's car leaving the roadway and hitting a tree, killing the officer. Very unfortunate. We pay tribute to all the police officers around the United States and also around the world, for their lives are very precious. Their lives are very precious. Those of us who lived to see another day, who were able to take off the uniform once and final time and still live to tell about it. I'm one of those fortunate people. People every day put on the uniform. They don't know whether they're going to come back home when they leave the house. I faced that opportunity many times. As I was buttoning the police uniform at the beginning of before the beginning of my shift, before leaving my house, I knew that there was a possibility that I might not return. That is the same thing with this man's family here. He lives behind a wife and 2 children, as well as people that worked with him on his department for many years. We thank him for his service. We thank all the officers around this country and throughout the world who have given up their lives, sacrificed their lives for each one of us. Thank you for your time, guys. Thank you for your service. We love and appreciate each one of you. Guys, it's sad. It's very sad. May God bless him and God bless all the other officers still on the streets, protecting our lives and our families as well. Guys, we have a lot of things we want to talk about. One of the first things I want to talk about is earthquakes that happened on Saturday. We've had no major earthquakes today, fortunately, or yesterday for that matter. Yes, we've had some moderate earthquakes, 4.0, 4.9. We've had some small earthquakes around the globe. We've had some large earthquakes around the globe, but nothing huge, nothing huge. But Saturday was a different story. Why did those earthquakes hit? I'm going to tell you right now, solar flares. Solar flares. On the sun right now, we have this large sunspot that's rotating to our right here on your screen, rotating over to the west on your screen. By Wednesday, this sunspot will be rotated out of Earth view. It will no longer be Earth facing. But starting Friday morning, it was Earth facing. We had some C-class, some G-class, and M-class flares that fired off from the sun. Some of those are stronger. Some of those led to the earthquakes that we had here on this earth on Friday and Saturday. I talked about the earthquakes that happened on Friday. I'm going to talk about the earthquakes that happened on Saturday. I posted about those earthquakes after they happened on our YouTube channel post link. I showed you the earthquakes that happened. This is the reason. That sunspot here is the reason we have all those earthquakes on Saturday. Let's talk about this. Okay, first off, Vanuatu. This was a 5.2 large earthquake in Vanuatu, and there was about 5 other aftershocks in Vanuatu. None of these earthquakes here in Vanuatu had anything to do with land. They're out in the ocean, fortunately. Out in the ocean, fortunately, the ocean waters have absorbed the shockwaves of these quakes. Nobody was affected. That's Vanuatu. Okay, now, let's talk about more here. Let's talk about Fiji here. This is a 5.34 earthquake in Fiji. Far enough away from any landmass that this earthquake did not harm anybody, nor did anybody really feel it. 5.34 earthquake in Fiji. Now the next earthquake is a big one. It's a big one. It's in outlying islands in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, guys. bordering the Atlantic Ocean here. This was a big one on Saturday morning. Okay, it hit at 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time here on the East Coast of North America. This was a 6.1 earthquake. 6.1 earthquake. But guys, guess what? It was not just a 6.1, it was a 6.5 earthquake. USGS didn't want to show what's going on. I found the information about that. It was actually 6.5 earthquake here in the ocean here in Antigua. Now I'm going to do something here that I don't normally do during one of our broadcasts here. I want to make sure you understand what's going on here. Okay? Antigua. Okay? I'm going to enlarge this earthquake map. I'm going to enlarge this map. This earthquake was 34 miles away from Antigua, about 70 miles south of Barbuda in the outlying islands here. You can see this fault zone, okay? The Cayman Ridge coming out of Guatemala, going up towards the Cayman Islands, stretching east all the way north of Jamaica, north of Haiti, north of the Dominican Republic, north of Puerto Rico, and north and east of the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. Then that same earthquake fault goes almost out here to the southeast, and then goes almost straight west or straight south here. Okay, it goes out over on the east side of the outlying islands here. This earthquake dropped this earthquake fault. The Cayman Ridge dropped this earthquake here in the ocean here, and then the Cayman Ridge stretches further south. Then it makes an immediate western turn over into Venezuela, the Cayman Ridge. But this earthquake was a very strong 6.1 earthquake. Very strong 6.1 earthquake Saturday morning. We have not had one of these since then. It may still happen. Could still happen. Because that same solar flare or solar sunspot is still active. And even though it's gone west now, off to the right, like I said, off to your right of the sun's solar disk, it's still Earth facing. However, any solar flares right now may be skipping off the outside of the Earth's atmosphere, skipping off out into space. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be affected by the plasma radiation and the immediate radiation, the X-ray radiation, which is almost immediate within several hours. X-ray radiation is almost immediate. And then later, anywhere from 2 to 3 days later, we get the plasma radiation, which affects everybody. It affects everybody on this face of the earth, whether it's plants or animals. Your physical bodies are being affected by the plasma radiation. Then, once it hits the Earth's surface, that's when all that stuff that's holding the plates and also the faults in place, all that gunk and grime, all the sand, all the earth, all the stones and gravel, all the biological material that holds the plates and the faults in place. Yes, it's friction, guys, friction. All that stuff's holding the plates and everything in place. When that solar radiation hits the earth, it heats up that gunk and grime, turns it into oily, greasy-like substance, allows those faults to more freely move like this, or the plates more freely move like this. One plate subducting under the other just like this. That's what happened here on Saturday. That's what's happening all over the world whenever we have a good-sized earthquake. Good-sized earthquake, guys. Okay? I want to explain that to you. Now, there's something else that's happening. Something else we need to talk about here. It's important. It's very important. This past Friday, huge events happen on Friday, literally all day Friday. We did not see the multitude of the event until Friday evening. We didn't see the full outcome of the event until Friday evening. Let me show you right here. This is the tremor count from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. The 24-hour tremor count on Friday, 369 earthquakes. That's tremors, guys. Tremors. Not big earthquakes, not anything else but tremors. 1.0 to 1.9 tremors up and down the west coast of North America from Vancouver, British Columbia, all the way down the coast to Northern California. 369 tremors. However, when it came right down to it, guess what? That number's even larger. 614 events up and down the entire coastline. 614 events up and down the entire coastline. As it turns out, the 369 events were along Oregon and Washington coasts, on the Oregon and Washington coast and off the coast of Vancouver Island. 369 slow slip earthquakes. Up and down the entire coastline to Northern California, 614 earthquakes, guys. 614 events happen. Let's talk about this. On May 16th, Friday, the PNSN, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, showed at least 369 distinct slow slip tremor events in a 24-hour window, from early Friday morning until Friday evening. 369 slow slip events during that period, but concentrated on the segment of the Cascadia margin. It's a lot more than that. Now we are also talking 321 years since the last Cascadia earthquake. 321 years since the last Cascadia earthquake. What does that mean? Let's talk about that. Since we last had the Cascadia earthquake, a 9.0, 10.0 magnitude earthquake event back in 1700, January 27th, 1700, was the last full plate rupture here. Full plate rupture between the Pacific plate, the Farallon plate, the Juan de Fuca plate, and the eastern side or the western side of the North American fault, North American plate. Full plate rupture. The plates turned apart from each other, caused that earthquake. 321 years later, we are still awaiting another Cascadia type earthquake. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And now 81 years past its own historical recurrence level. 81 years past its historical recurrence level. That means it could happen any day now. Any day now. None of the tremor events were felt that we had on Friday. None of the tremor events that are happening right now have been felt. Tremors are basically 1.0 to 1.9 earthquakes. 1.0, 1.9 earthquakes are tremors. They're so small they cannot be felt, but they have a lasting influence on us all. They have a lasting influence. None of them were felt. They're too small to even feel. Tiny events. Excuse me. The mainstream subduction zone seismology community classifies these clusters as routine episodic tremor events. Routine episodic tremor slow slip events. Slightly higher in intensity than the multi-day baseline. Sitting on the tremor segment, the Cascadia earthquake segment, that is statistically being the most likely place to have the next destructive point in history. The most distinctive and statistically the most destructive place in the world for a major earthquake that has more people living in the footprint than anywhere else on Earth. There is no operational signals to demand change behavior today. There are no operation signals that demand behavior changes in us today. What seismologists are watching over the coming days is whether this cluster expands geographically over a larger area or whether any anomalous uptick in propagation occurs in monitoring data. In other words, are we going to have more tremors or an increase in magnitude of the earthquakes that have already hit? That's a possibility. It's a possibility. It's happened before, it's going to happen again. Okay? Now, whether the conventional small quake activity at the southernmost region, the Cascadia subduction zone region, at the Mendocino Triple Junction, continues at the elevated rate of Friday afternoon showed. Let me show you what we're talking about here. To take this down, I'm going to show you the USGS map here. What we're talking about is over here in the Triple Junction, where the Cascadia subduction zone that runs up and down the northern side of North America up here between Northern California and Haida Gwaii, British Columbia. The Cascadia subduction zone runs all that direction, goes down here to the Triple Junction, where it hooks up with the Gorda Escarpment. The Gorda Escarpment here, guys. The Gorda Escarpment is that east-west fault zone, running away from Northern California here. The Gorda Escarpment. Then you see the perpendicular line running from the southwest to the northeast there. That's called the Gorda Ridge. Then further north here, you have the Juan de Fuca Fault. The Juan de Fuca Fault here. Now, guys, that is different. That's completely different. But I want to explain something here. This area where the Cascadia subduction zone is and the Juan de Fuca Fault is off the coast of Washington and Vancouver Island. This has been where most of the faults, well, not most of the faults, most of the earthquakes have hit in recent past. However, this is a big however, but it still could happen. But during this past Friday, we had more episodic tremors here in the southern part of the Cascadia subduction zone than we've ever had. We've had more noted earthquakes on Friday this past week than we ever have had before. Upwards of 614 episodic tremors here in the southern part of the Cascadia subduction zone, and only 361 subduction tremors up here in the Pacific Northwest. That's different. That's different. Why is this so important? As I've explained this to you in the past, here in the southern part of the Cascadia subduction zone, the Cascadia subduction zone intersects with the Gorda Escarpment and the San Andreas Fault here, the San Andreas Fault. Then, as I've told you before, the San Andreas Fault runs along the coast of Northern California. Then once it gets past San Francisco, it goes inland throughout California, then runs down the east side of Southern California, east side of Los Angeles, running over here into the Imperial Valley here, running over here in the Imperial Valley, on the eastern side of the Salton Sea here, and then running down here into the Gulf of California, and then way further south here, down to southern Mexico down here, the San Andres Fault. It's huge. It's huge. Why is this important? Why is this important? As I stated a few minutes ago, we had a total of 614 episodic tremors. 614 episodic tremors up and down the coast here. 314 of those, 364 of those up in the Pacific Northwest. That's huge. That's huge. When the Cascadia earthquake hits, whether it's down here on the southern region of the subduction zone or up north, this earthquake is going to be reached up here into Alaska, going to be felt up here in Alaska, all the way down the coast of California, all the way down the western coast of Canada, Washington, Oregon, all the way down the coast of California, all the way down into southern Mexico. They say the majority of this earthquake will be felt down into northern Mexico. But as you saw here on this map, the San Andres Fault goes all the way down to the southwest coast of southern Mexico. But the majority of the quake will be felt down into southern Mexico, and then across the entire North American continent, to the east, across Canada, and across the United States to the East Coast. Going to feel large earthquake shakes on the East Coast after the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hits. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I am specifically going to address today what happened Friday and what could happen here on the Pacific coast of North America. I want to address that because this is where the greatest loss of life is going to be. The greatest loss of life is going to be here. I want to make sure everybody understands that. It's important, guys. It's important. Okay? Again, conventional earthquake activity, small quake activity in the southernmost region, the Cascadia subduction zone region, at the Mendocino Triple Junction continues at an elevated rate as of Friday evening. Yes, it's gotten less since Friday evening, but it's continued. I want to make that abundantly clear. The tremors are continuing here in the southern portion of the Cascadia subduction zone. It's important. Now, as I show you this information today, what the slow slip tremors are actually doing, and why the southern segment concentration matters, and what has happened during the 321-year strain cycle since the January 26, 1700 earthquake hit, since the January 26, 1700 rupture occurred. Okay? What science is telling us up close and personal real time about this Cascadia fault that holds approximately 7 million people in its broader exposure footprint. The fault zone holds 7 million people in its broader exposure footprint. Does everybody really understand that? The information we are presenting tonight is going to draw from official scientific and government data sources, including the Pacific Seismic Network, Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, the USGS, NOAA, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and peer-reviewed research, with interpretive analysis where noted. Statements about potential future events represent our analysis. Statements about our potential future events represent our analysis of what is going to happen and our conclusions. During the past few years, we've shown you all slow slip tremor events on the Cascadia subduction zone. In 24-hour windows, the PNSN network has been showing us earthquakes and tremors up and down the East Coast, or I'm sorry, not the East Coast, but the West Coast of North America. Okay? On the segment of the subduction zone, I'm talking about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake subduction zone. It's now 320 years past its last rupture and 81 years past due. It's 81 years past its own recurrence interval. None of the tremors that happened on Friday and none of the tremors that are happening right now have been felt earthquakes. No one can feel tremors 1.0, 1.9. Most people are not able to even feel minor earthquakes 2.0 or 2.9 either. Yes, occasionally we do get tremors upwards of 2.7 and 2.8 earthquakes. I want to make that also clear here. It's happening. It's happening, guys. Jamie Wilkie says he's been feeling weak rocking here in Seattle, Washington. I'm sorry, Jamie is a woman. Jamie's been feeling it. Many other people have as well. Now, this is happening, guys. None of these events predict anything by themselves, but every one of these things is a real signal from the fault line. Fault that has been watched for years, over 40 years now. Over 40 years, the Cascadia fault zone has been watched. During the next few minutes, we're going to walk you through what these tremors are and why the southern segment of the Cascadia subduction zone matters and what seismologists are looking for next. We've always been we've been telling everybody over the last 6 years what's been going on. That the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake was going to occur in the Cascadia subduction zone up north off the Juan de Fuca Fault, between the Juan de Fuca Fault and the Cascadia subduction zone. Things might be changing. Some scientists have been telling us for a while now that it could also occur in the southern segment. This earthquake could occur in the southern segment right here. That has left some speculation as to where the megathrust earthquake would occur. On Friday this past week, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network's automated tremor catalog registered 369 earthquakes, distinct slow slip tremors in a 24-hour window, ending late last Friday night, Pacific time. The cluster events sat on the southern end of the segment. The cluster of events sat in the southern segment of the subduction zone. The southern segment includes the Juan de Fuca Fault, I'm sorry, not the Juan de Fuca, the Gorda Escarpment, the Gorda Ridge, the Cascadia subduction zone, and also the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault here. Okay? Offshore from Northern California is the Gorda Escarpment and the Gorda Ridge. Offshore, close to the landmass, to northern American plate, is the Cascadia subduction zone. And leaving the Cascadia subduction zone and the Gorda Ridge and the Gorda Escarpment, it's the San Andreas Fault. This is where it happened this past Friday. Anything less than either a minor 2.0 or 2.9 earthquakes or tremors 1.0, 1.9, they can't be felt. Those size earthquakes cannot be felt. None of these events themselves predict any seismic signal that could signal anything happening causing a large earthquake. None of these tremors by themselves can say whether there's going to be a larger Cascadia earthquake or not. But together they do. Together they signal that there's a lot of events happening over here between the several plates here. Between the Pacific plate, the Juan de Fuca plate, the Farallon plate, and the North American plate. That's what they signal. A lot of activity. What's actually going on? What's actually going on here, guys? I want to tonight explain what's happening, so there is nobody that can say they were not told. I want to make sure you know what's going on, because I don't want anybody to say you were not told what's happening. I just put up this slide here showing the Cascadia subduction zone deep slip transition deep in the earth. Deep in the earth. Okay? You can see where the plates are subducting underneath the North American continent here. You can see this plate subduction. Now, guys, this doesn't happen all at once. It subducts by centimeters yearly. 6 to 9 centimeters yearly. But guess what? A lot of that energy is locked up. It's locked up. And when it gives, we have large earthquakes. When it gives, we have large earthquakes. But also you need to know that down here inside the earth, this is where the earth is hot enough to start melting those plates that are subducting. This is where the magma is, guys. This is where the magma is. And this is where it is hot enough where the plates that are subducting get heated up enough to turn into magma, turn into rock melt. Right beneath the surface, it's not hot enough. But as the plates reach deep enough, it turns into the place where all of a sudden there is magma. Now, sometimes that will also cause a volcano in that location. I want to make that abundantly clear here. None of these events can themselves predict anything. But every one of these single tremor events together promote a real signal, a real physical signal that something specific is happening on the fault that has not fully released its strain over 321 years. Another parallel monitoring feed briefly showed an event higher than that figure on Friday night. I showed you that slide where there were 614 events. 614 events. That's overall on the entire Cascadia subduction zone. 614 events. Okay? I want to make sure everybody understands that. There is no real disagreement because up in the northern part, there are 369, which is a lot more than we've ever had. But overall, up and down the entire fault line, 614 events is very real. It's very real. Okay? Now, everybody pulling the information during this 20-minute period window have had 20-minute period window of logged over 24-hour of earthquakes and higher. 24-hour period of earthquakes. And that's what's really we're saying out loud rather than just guessing at it. The instruments that watch this entire subduction zone are very good, but none of those seismographs are perfect. None of those seismographs are perfect. As I have explained over the past 4 years, 4 years ago here, on the southern part of, actually the middle part of the fault, under the middle part of the fault here, guys. Let me take down this slow slip that I explained here. Let me move this fault down here, this plate down here, so you can see what's going on. I'm talking about Oregon. During the past year and a half, off the coast of Oregon, Oregon State University has placed over 55, actually 3 years ago, Oregon State University placed 55 seismographs on the sea bottom here. 3 years ago, the state of Oregon, through the Oregon State University system, placed 55 seismographs on the bottom of the ocean here to record earthquake activity off the coast. Previously, they placed seismographs up and down the entire coast on land. During the last year and a half, Washington State University and the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, aided by the USGS, have placed another 51 seismographs off the coast of Washington State, monitoring seismic activity off the coast of Washington State. So now we have over 106 seismographs sitting on the ocean's bottom, showing us earthquake data. None of us, not you and I, all of us, don't have access to that data. Only the agencies show it. They don't want us to see it. They don't want to see it. And they may have created a huge stir allowing us to see the tremor map on Friday, showing us all those earthquakes. Unreal. Unreal, guys. Uncut and picking real. This is real, guys. Okay? I'm not going to try glossing over it. Okay? The instruments that monitor the entire subduction zone are very good, but none of them are perfect. On Friday night, they were doing their job. They were doing their job, performing their job as they've been normally doing for years now. But Friday night was different. Friday night was different. What they did Friday night was the equivalent of cleaning their throat, clearing their throat. To understand why that 369 figure matters, we have to understand what slow slip tremors actually are. Most people, when they hear the word earthquake, picture a sharp jolt. They see books and knickknacks flying off of shelves. They imagine plates, glasses, dishes flying out of cupboards. They imagine chandeliers or lights hanging off of ceilings, waving violently in the air. That is not what happens when tremors occur. Tremors are not felt. They can't be felt. You're not going to see pictures falling off walls. You're not going to hear plates rattling around in cupboards. You're not going to see anything falling off of shelves. Here, the shaking lasts maybe 30 seconds, and it's over. The episodic tremor is about 30 seconds, and it's over. But this is only one facet of plate behavior. This is only one facet of fault behavior. Slow slip tremors are a different category. And it is in this category that the Cascadia subduction zone produces every 14 to 15 months on its northern segment especially, where we have almost always told you where the Cascadia megathrust earthquake is going to occur, and somewhat more infrequently and further down to the south. Now, for years now, we've been talking about Professor Goldfinger, Chris Goldfinger. He's now Professor Emeritus at Oregon State University. He has said that the subduction zone earthquake would carry the seismic energy down the Cascadia subduction zone and or down the Juan de Fuca Fault, down over to the Gorda Ridge, to the Gorda Escarpment, and over to the east to the San Andreas Fault, or straight down the Cascadia subduction zone to the San Andreas Fault, where the seismic activity, the seismic energy would be echoed all the way down to northern Mexico. He said that. December 23rd, 2019, there was a conference of seismologists and geologists in San Francisco. Chris Goldfinger at the time said it was very possible that the Cascadia earthquake, the 9.0, 10.0 magnitude earthquake, would hit the San Andreas Fault, and the seismic energy would be echoed down the San Andreas Fault all the way down to northern Mexico. The slow slip events we're having up here in the north, they happen deeper near the shallow edge of the fault. They happen deeper near the shallow edge of the fault. Let me go back to the slow slip explained here. Okay? The slow slip events are happening near the top of the fault, where the plates meet, but the real slow slip events happen further down deep, sometimes maybe 40 miles deep, sometimes up to 40 miles deep, still fairly shallow. Okay? Sometimes as little as 30, 40, 45 kilometers deep, where the rock is hot enough to slide slowly, but not hot enough to slide freely, where the rock, the plate, is not hot enough to slide slowly, but to slide freely. Okay? It's going to slide slowly, not freely. Each event releases roughly the energy of a magnitude 6.5 earthquake. Each one of these events roughly releases the energy of a magnitude 6.5 earthquake. The release unfolds over days, not seconds. The release of these tremors unfolds over days, not seconds. The shaking it produces is so low frequency that no one person on the surface can feel it. Only specialized seismographs can detect it as a continuous low frequency tremor signal. A low frequency tremor signal. Now, this phenomenon was first discovered in 2003 by two Canadian seismologists working for the Canadian Geological Survey, Gary Rogers and Herb Dreger. They had been watching GPS stations across Vancouver Island. They noticed the stations were briefly reversing course every 14 to 15 months. Sometimes they were going north, the slow slip events were moving north, and then they would reverse themselves, going south. Okay? That went on for 2 weeks before the reversal happened, and they went north. Now they also went briefly westward as well. The brief western drift was a surface signature, the surface seismic signature of slow slip happening at depth The slow slip signature, the surface signature, happening at depth, beneath the GPS stations. The deep edge of the locked subduction zone interface was relaxing in slow motion. The deep edge of the locked subduction zone was relaxing in slow motion, briefly allowing the surface above to drift back westward. As the elastic strain on the locked subduction zone temporarily decreased. This is what we've been calling episodic tremor slip, or ETS. Episodic tremor slip, or ETS. The discovery was published in the journal Science. It changed how we understand the subduction zones between the big earthquakes. It increases our understanding of what the subduction zones do between great earthquakes. Now here's the part of what happened Friday night. The part of Friday night's signal that has most people that watch this fault closely paying more attention to it than usual. Slow slip events on Cascadia normally migrate. Slow slip tremor events migrate. They begin again in one segment, whether it's the northern segment, the central segment, or the furthest south segment. And the southern segment is not just any part of the Cascadia margin. It is a segment that Chris Goldfinger's offshore turbidite chronology at Oregon State University shown. The turbidite terminology, the chronology. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Right here. They sent some ships just off the coast of Oregon and Washington. In this case, they sent some ships off the coast of California, over here to the Gorda Ridge and the Gorda Escarpment. They drilled down into the ocean. They drilled down into the bottom of the ocean. They took earth cores. They took earth core samples. Okay? What happened? What have we found? Chris Goldfinger found that the rupture happened down here as well. It also happened here in the southern part of the Cascadia subduction zone, not just up north. They know for a fact it's happened up north, but it's also happened down here in the south. Okay? It's happened down here over 10,000 years. 10,000 years. Chris Goldfinger's work is a foundation for what the PNSN, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, and USGS now thinks about how often this fault breaks. How often the Cascadia fault breaks. Beginning in the late 1990s, Goldfinger's team collected sediment cores from the deep ocean floor offshore Cascadia. Each great earthquake on the subduction zone shakes the continental shelf hard enough to trigger submarine landslides. Meaning the land in the ocean slides down. There's hills and valleys in the oceans as well. When we have big earthquakes, those big earthquakes cause landslides in the ocean. Okay? Each landslide deposits a distinctive layer in the deep ocean sediment called a turbidite. By correlating turbidite layers across dozens of cores and radiocarbon dating the organic matter Organic material between the layers, Professor Goldfinger reconstructed approximately 19 full margin Cascadia ruptures, 19 Cascadia megathrust earthquakes over the past 10,000 years. 19 full plate ruptures, 19 Cascadia megathrust earthquakes over the past 10,000 years. The average recurrence interval for those full margin events is approximately 500 years. The southern segment alone has ruptured about 41 times in that same amount of time period, averaging 240 years between events. Averaging 240 years between events. The southern segment ruptures roughly twice as often as the entire subduction zone. The southern segment is currently 321 years past its last documented rupture. 321 years past its last documented rupture. It's past the average 81 years past. The last full margin rupture is the event that put it on the map and put the Cascadia hazard into modern science. It occurred on the night of January 26, 1700. January 26, 1700. Incredible, you might say. Yes, it is. It's very incredible. We know it happened. We now have evidence of it happening. We know for a fact it happened, guys. And yes, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Okay? Now, how do we know this? As I explained before, people in Japan kept excellent records. One day later on January 27th, one day later after the earthquake, a huge tsunami engulfed Japan. A huge tsunami engulfed the western side of Japan, or eastern side of Japan. Eastern side of Japan, guys, I'm sorry. Eastern side. They wondered at first why it happened, because they've been familiar with earthquakes off the eastern coast of Japan causing tsunamis. This did not accompany an earthquake. They found out later it happened over off the western side of North America. Okay? January 26, 1700, approximately 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We know the date with a precise date because 3 completely independent lines of evidence converge on it. Brian Atwater, a USGS scientist in the early 1980s, found multiple buried marsh soils along the Washington coast with overlying tsunami sand deposits. Overlying sandy deposits left over from the tsunami that hit after the earthquake hit. Ghost forests, guys. Okay? Brian Atwater found these buried marsh soils and ghost forests here over the overlying tsunami sand deposits. Each letter was consistent with sudden subsidence and an immediate tsunami. David Yamaguchi, who we have talked to about in past episodes of this program from the University of Washington, matched the outermost growth rings of dead western red cedars. He matched the outermost portion of growth, the growth rings of dead west red cedars in that area. Coastal ghost forest. Coastal ghost forest. He matched that to dormant season between the year 1699 to 1700. 1699 to 1700. Now, over in Japan, Kenji Satake was at the Geological Survey of Japan. He found records from Gyoku era coastal communities of Japan of an unexplained tsunami arriving on the morning of January 27th, 1700. A wave that was not felt because of a Japanese earthquake. Satake calculated the source of the event as the tsunami's arrival times and the bottom of the ocean's surface of the Pacific Ocean. He calculated the times that the tsunami wave took from North America to Japan. The answer to the time was 9 p.m. in the evening, Pacific time, January 26, 1700. 3 independent dating methods, 1 hour on one day and 300 years later. That is a precision of what science now knows about when the last earthquake hit, when the last subduction zone fault ruptured. The Jafuka plate is converging eastward. Jafuka Japanese plate is converging eastward into North America at approximately 3 to 4 centimeters per year. The Watt seismogenic zone, the portion of the subduction zone interface where strain accumulates because of the plates, are stuck together. The plates are stuck together. Why? Friction. Friction of sand, gravel, grit, and biological material. When heated up, allows the plates to more freely move like we saw on Saturday. The plates run roughly 20 kilometers beneath the seafloor. Offshore, inland down to 40 kilometers deep, below the coastal range. The width of that lock zone in the deep direction, approximately 70 to 90 kilometers deep. Along the strike slip, the lock zone is continuous from approximately the Mendocino Triple Junction to the south to the northern end of Vancouver Island in the north. Let me repeat that. What portion of the Cascadia subduction zone is the area from the Gorda Ridge, the Gorda Escarpment, all the way north to northern Vancouver Island? That is a continuous lock fault zone of the Cascadia subduction zone. The area is locked and loaded. This same area, 800 miles, 1,000 kilometers long, is locked. It has failed to produce a magnitude 9 to 10 points earthquake every 321 years at 3 to 4 centimeters per year. It works out to be 9 to 13 meters of stored slip across the entire locked subduction zone. 9 to 13 meters of locked slip. Imagine that. 9 to 13 meters. 9 times 3 is 27 feet. 13 times 3. What's that? 49 feet. 49 feet of locked subduction zone. Locked fault across the entire subduction zone. The area is locked and loaded. When the locked subduction zone eventually fails, the rock on one side of the fault is going to jump 9 to 15 meters. The rock on one side of the subduction zone, guys, is going to jump 9 to 13 meters relative to the rock on the other side. This is a select magnitude the locked subduction zone is currently storing. The eventual rupture of the subduction zone, whether it breaks the full margin or not, where only the southern segment is, will release that stored slip energy. It's going to release that stored slip energy, a wave that propagates along the fault roughly 2 to 3 kilometers deep. That seismic energy, 2 to 3 kilometers deep, is huge. Huge, guys. The shaking at the surface will probably last between 3 to 5 minutes. In Portland, Seattle, Eugene, Oregon, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Victoria, British Columbia, the experience of 3 to 5 minutes of strong shaking will be longer than any other continental crust earthquake that any current resident has ever felt in the Pacific Northwest at all. That length of slip, that length of earthquake shaking, 3 to 5 minutes is going to be more than anybody has experienced on the Cascadia subduction zone in recent history. Fact. Fact. It's going to be felt, guys. It's going to be felt up and down the entire fault zone. Up and down the entire fault zone. What's happening there? This is the petroleum storage tanks along the Willamette River in Oregon. What's going to happen, guys? Let's talk about what's going to happen. It's not just here, in Seattle, Tacoma area as well. Up and down the entire coastline, Oregon, Washington, Vancouver Island, and Victoria, British Columbia. The entire area. The ground is going to shake. Shake horribly. Shake badly. It will be longer than any Northridge earthquake in California. It will be longer than the Loma Prieta quake in San Francisco. It will be the longest sustained ground motion the region's ever seen since 1700. The slow slip tremor events of this past Friday are not just happening in the shallow lock zone. They're happening at the deep transition zone between the lock zone and the freely sliding zone below it. The episodic tremor slip releases stress that's deep in the deep transition area that's been holding. That released stress doesn't disappear. It transfers a dip toward the surface onto the lock zone above it. Every ETS event makes the lock zone slightly more stressed than it was the day before. Every event is small. The cumulative event, integrated over 320 years of slow slip cycles repeating every 14 months or less, is meaningful. The lock subduction zone has a finite breaking strength. The lock subduction zone has a finite breaking strength. The slow slip cycles have been steadily approaching the threshold of breaking for centuries now. Now, here's what the mainstream subduction zone seismology community will tell you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's not going to happen in your lifetime. That's their answer about everything, isn't it? And it is the answer to the question we've been talking about. The slow slip tremor cluster of May 15th is not a prediction. The Pacific Northwest Seismic Network has cataloged thousands of slow slip events across the Cascadia subduction zone in the past 20 years. Thousands. The overwhelming majority of them have passed with no follow-up event of any kind. The base rate of slow slip events are not followed by megathrust earthquakes so far. Then immediate observable time period. Now, guys, it's still going to happen. They're going to tell you it hasn't happened in a long time. That's true. They're going to tell you it's not going to happen in your lifetime. They don't know that. Slow slip events is the continued breathing of heavily locked subduction zone faults. It's continued breathing of the healthy locked subduction zone area. A healthy subduction zone is one that is still capable of generating the next megathrust earthquake. The breathing does not predict the eventual rupture. It is a signature, however, of the system that will eventually fail. But there is a smaller and more recent thread in this literature that's worth investigating here. In the weeks before March 11th, 2011, where the Tohoku Japanese quake hit, 9.1 earthquake, March 11th, 2011, all along the Japanese trench, the Japan trench. Retrospective of the 9.1 earthquake, the analysis of GPS and ocean bottom seismograph data. They identified an unusual slow slip pulse, that had been propagating up and down the deeper interface between the shallow next layer and the layer up above it that ultimately failed to cause the 9.1 earthquake in Japan. The pulse was small that caused it. It was not large enough to have triggered operational warning. There was no warning, but it was there and it was unusual. It propagated further up than the normal slow slip happened. It propagated up further up the normal slow slip on the Japan trench than it had been previously observed to do. It terminated on the morning of March 11th, when the fault zone finally broke and the magnitude 9.1 rupture began. Now, whether the Tohoku slip happened is a casual precursor to the rupture or simply coincidental is an open question in subduction zone terminology. The mainstream view is this: it's probably coincidental. The statistics are only a sample size of one instrumental planned subduction zone megaquake. Does not allow a confident conclusion. Really? Does not allow a confident conclusion? Yes, it does. The minority view, which has been growing slowly over the field of a lot of years, is anomalous of slow slip, meaning a slip that breaks from the regular ETS recurrence pattern. It's a slip that breaks further up the fault, the normal, and transfers the stress closer to the locked subduction zone. Transfer the stress closer to the locked subduction zone. And yes, the scientists are now looking at it. It's warranted a further look at it. It is a possible precursor signal to when we're going to see the Cascadia earthquake happen. It's not on rare occasions. It's not coincidental at all. The slow slip behaves in unusual ways. The probability of subsequent large event on a shorter time scale is modestly elevated. Let me repeat that. The probability of subsequent large event on a short scale is modestly elevated. The Friday night Cascadia cluster by every metric is public evidence that reveals that this is just not a normal thing happen. It does not qualify as an anomalous precursor event. It does appear to be an unexpected event. A recurrence schedule for the southern segment of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. An expected recurrence on the southern segment of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake fault. The tremors are not propagating up in any obvious ways. The signal is mainly on its geographic concentration. As of Friday night this past week, the mainstream is saying this is a routine ETS event. It's not. It's more intense. It's more intense than the everyday multi-day baseline. More intense than everyday baseline of solar slip events. Okay? It is also on the segment margin, the southern margin of the Cascadia megathrust earthquake event, where it's possible we're going to have a major rupture here in the south, off the coast of Northern California. This is an honest read of the data. There is no scientific basis on which anyone can responsibly tell you that the Cascadia rupture is happening in days or weeks. It's impossible to say that. There is no scientific basis or any evidence that you're going to find that will tell you that the Cascadia event is within weeks or months of happening, even days. What changes is the urgency. It's the urgency, not days or weeks. The change is urgency now, not the Friday signal by itself. What changes is the urgency. It's what is on top of the fault. What is on top of the fault? The Cascadia exposure footprint. The broader regions likely to experience life-threatening shaking and or tsunami inundation in a full margin event, a full plate rupture event that contains approximately 7 million people. The area contains 7 million people, guys. The Seattle-Tacoma, Bellevue metropolitan area, 4 million people. The Portland metropolitan area, 2.5 million people. Vancouver, British Columbia, 2.5 million people. Victoria, 500,000. The Oregon and Washington coastal communities west of the coastal range and the Olympic Mountains, 700,000 permanent residents, more than just summer tourist season. The Northern California coastal communities, Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino, yes, Mendocino guys, another 50 to 100,000 residents. Think of that. Another 50 to 100,000 residents here. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. Just in that footprint alone. The infrastructure picture here. The infrastructure picture across that footprint has been documented for decades, 2 decades at least. Approximately 70% of West Coast urban region has built infrastructure outside the single-family wood frame homes that does not meet modern seismic standards. I'm going to repeat that. Approximately 70% of West Coast urban region has been built. Infrastructure has been built outside of the single-family wood frame structure homes that does not meet modern earthquake standards. The critical energy infrastructure the critical energy infrastructure hub in northwest Portland, the 6-mile stretch of the Willamette River, or the shoreline, where roughly 95% of Oregon's and southwestern Washington's liquid fuel is stored, right here that I've shown you. This fuel storage facility sits on a liquefiable soil. Liquefaction, guys, meaning that the soil beneath this plant is going to sink. It's going to turn into quicksand. This area is going to turn into quicksand. When the Cascadia megathrust earthquake event arrives, current modeling shows these tanks will tilt and rupture in the spilled fuel that will generate ignition sources here. The tanks will tilt and rupture. And spilled fuel will come out of those tanks, and the pipelines on the ground will find ignition sources and cause major fires. These fires will also continue following broken power lines and broken pipelines throughout the region, running through the plant and outside the plant, over into the industrial super infrastructure area. Oregon's 2022 seismic risk assessment estimated the post-Cascadia fuel disruption will last weeks to months, and possibly longer than that. The Burnside Bridge. Let me bring up the Burnside Bridge here to show you that. Right there. The Burnside Bridge, guys, will not be the only bridge that will go down. All the bridges throughout this area are going to go down. They're not built up to earthquake standards at all. The Burnside Bridge in Portland, built in 1926, is in the engineering consensus going to fail during the shaking. They're only in the process phases of re-engineering the bridge, which means they're nowhere near going to re-engineer it anytime soon. It's going to fail during the shaking. Multnomah County's replacement bridge project has been in the planning stages for years, and construction has not yet begun. Construction on the replacement bridge has not begun. The coastal tsunami picture is far worse, far much worse. Let's talk about the tsunami possibility here. That in and of itself is a big deal. Tsunami routes. Tsunami routes get away from the waves. The wave will come off the coast onto the shoreline. Off the coast onto the shoreline. It's going to be rushing through homes. It's going to be rushing through business districts. Where the businesses and buildings are closer together, the water is going to speed up, meaning faster water is meaning it's going to go further inland. Further inland. People are going to be running. People are going to be walking, trying to get away from the wave. Not just one wave, but multiple waves. Multiple waves, guys. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. The coastal tsunami picture is part of the response that is most measurably incomplete. On the entire 600-mile Cascadia coast from Cape Mendocino north to Vancouver Island. From Cape Mendocino north to Vancouver Island, there is exactly one vertical tsunami evacuation tower. One tower that you see right here. One vertical tower here. This vertical tower is nowhere near going to be able to catch and house the people that are going to try to run up to it. This evacuation tower was specifically designed and built to function as a multi-hour shelter for a population that cannot reach natural high ground within 15 to 25 minutes after the initial earthquake happens. Within 15 to 25 minutes after the initial earthquake happens, that's when you're going to see the tsunami come to shore. Within 15 to 25 minutes. This tower was never built to house more than 400 people at a time, meaning that the number of people rushing towards this tower is not going to be sufficient to protect them. The Anti-Lee Tower here at Tokeland, Washington, built in 2022 by the Shaw Water Bay Indian tribe, 50 feet tall, anchored 55 feet deep, with a capacity approximately of 400 people. On the tower, the proof of concept exists. One tower. The replication of this tower has not happened at all. No other towers at all. The funding to replicate it is, guess what? Non-existent. The funding to replicate this across the coast has not been allocated at any scale at all to match the population in the area that needs it. Doesn't exist. The conditional probability for a southern segment Cascadia event in the next 50 years is highly probable. As we have said before, given all the data that we have, I would not be surprised that it could happen in the next 5 years. 5 years, guys. 5 years. Five years. The conditional probability for a full margin event in the same window is approximately 10 to 15%. These are credible numbers derived from Goldfinger's recurrence data chronology, run through standard probabilistic seismic hazard analysis. These are realistic standards, realistic probabilities. It is roughly the probability of a rolling one or two sized six-sided die. The probability of rolling running one or two-sided dies across the surface. It is roughly the possibility of any random November day in Seattle being above 60%. Any Seattle day, the possibility of having a Cascadia earthquake is 60%. Any Seattle day. It is a conditional probability that a megathrust earthquake occurring, and someone watching this report tonight, arriving, and seeing it happen during their lifetime. A southern segment only rupture would be still a probable 8 to 8.5 earthquake. A southern segment rupture, guys, the probability is going to happen. 8 to 8.5 earthquake on the southern segment alone. On the southern segment alone. Eight to 8.5 earthquake. Bigger than any earthquake in California history. Bigger than any 1906 San Francisco rupture. Still a tsunami generating subduction megathrust earthquake is going to happen. The subduction zone tsunami is going to devastate Coos Bay, Brookings, Oregon, Crescent Bay, California, Eureka, California, and the Eel River Basin. It's going to devastate it. Complete and absolute devastation. The second probable and most likely outcome, and the probability is not negligible, is that it does, is that it will. The Friday night tremor cluster by itself is not different enough from routine baseline to move that probability assessment. But the cumulative weight of 320 years of accumulated strain in the southern segment of the Cascadia subduction zone has passed its average recurrence sitting beneath infrastructure. That is a very credible engineering evaluation less prepared than Japan was on the morning of March 11th. None of the infrastructure from Eureka, California in the north of California, all the way up into southern British Columbia, Canada. No one is ready for this to happen. No infrastructure is ready for it to happen at all. The slow slip event is going to hit, and the setup is going to be right inside, right before the Cascadia earthquake is going to hit. There's not going to be any warning at all. The signal is going to be small, but the setup is going to be large. In the weeks and days ahead, I am sure that the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network and USGS monitoring the Cascadia are going to be looking for specific signals that would change the read of what happened Friday night. But first, whether the tremor cluster expands geographically or whether it migrates north along the southern segment to the northern segment or appears at additional offshore stations or shows up the deeper edge of the locked station zone is always what would matter most. Where this seismic energy is going, the direction the seismic energy is flowing. Second, whether any anomalous data of information appears in the deeper monitoring data, the slow slip that breaks from the routine pattern and moves towards the shallow part of the fault in some way, the same way that the pre-Tohoku plate hit, yeah, we're looking at it. Third, whether the conventional small quake activity at the Mendocino Triple Junction continues at the elevated rate it's at, the hit on Friday afternoon, that showed what happened that we just showed you tonight, or whether the GPS displacement signals mean the ground sinking or rising, the GPS displacement for the subset of signals across the southern Cascadia margin, whether those signals show any departure from the routine convergence rate over the next several days. The monitoring infrastructure that catches all itself is already a piece of science. So the infrastructure is there. The seismographs are there. The GPS devices are in place. Before 2003, slow slip events were not even recognized as a category of fault behavior. Now they are. They are. Significantly are. The PNSN's tremor catalog, we've shown you in the past on a weekly basis, on 1 day basis weekly. Okay? Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's very poor because the agency hides the data. We've shown that. The agency has hidden the data. But what happened on Friday? The flag Friday's 369 tremor events is now science. The offshore ocean bottom seismographs that supplement the onshore stations. All of this is a product of the last 2 decades of subduction zone research. The instruments that registered the May 15th cluster did not exist when most of the bridges and unreinforced masonry buildings that are now in the cities downstream of this fault were built. Those older buildings are the ones that are going to fail. The science is now far ahead of the infrastructure by a huge measurable distance. What the science is showing us in real time is that the system is doing exactly what the long-term record says it does. None of these signals individually will constitute a prediction. There is no absolutely operational system anywhere, nowhere in the world, that can call the time of the subduction zone megathrust earthquake. No one can call the time of the day that the Cascadia subduction zone megathrust earthquake is going to hit, when it's going to rupture, from even observational data right now. The Friday night cluster will most likely be followed over the next 10 to 20 days by a return to baseline tremor activity. The signal will fade. The fault zone will keep loading. The next ETS cycle will arrive on its expected schedule, somewhere between 6 to 12 months. The system is alive. The bookkeeping of strain has been cataloged. The Earth is breathing on the schedule. The subduction zone is breathing on a schedule. On a schedule. The tremors off the Oregon coast are not the rupture. The Friday night signal is not a prediction, but a wake-up call. The Friday night seismology information is a wake-up call. Mainstream seismology people will tell you otherwise. Oh, you don't have to worry about it. You'll not hear much more of that out of the mainstream until it's way too late. You're not going to hear from the agencies until it's way too late. After the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, 9.0, 10.0 earthquake has already happened. But again, the southern segment of this fault zone is already past its average recurrence intervals. The southern segment has already happened. It's past its recurrence intervals. The strain has been loading for 321 years. The instruments are good enough now that we can hear the fault breathing in close to real time. The 7 million people who are in harm's way, who live in the broader exposure footprint of the eventual rupture, are sitting on a lava footprint where volcanoes have overflowed with the lava. And now, where it's sitting on top of a huge earthquake fault. Huge earthquake footprint, where infrastructure preparations by no stretch of our imagination not even adequate, given the information we know about. But every credible assessment is decades from completion. Every credible assessment is decades away from completion, even at current funding levels. What seismologists will be watching for in the coming days and weeks is whether the cluster that we saw expands, or whether the conventional small quake activity persists, whether anything anomalous appears in the seismic data suggests. None of the observations will predict a rupture. None of the current observations will predict a rupture. All of them will refine what we know about how this rupture is going to behave, how the fault is going to behave, and how its routine breathing is going to happen, how its routine breathing is going to be phased through. The conclusions here are this. Why has the tremor pattern off the Oregon coast have seismologists watching so closely? The big question. The pattern is very unusual. Is the pattern not by itself alarming? Yes, it is. The pattern is consistent with routine ETS signals. The pattern is consistent with routine ETS signals. Sitting on a segment of the fault, most likely to be the location of the next fault, fail. The next fault fail. Why have the people who study this fault been paying attention to this strain and the age of the strain, the geographic movement of the concentration of earthquakes, the structural setup, not just just not the individual signal of the ETS signal. The fault is breathing. The fault is breaking. It will breathe again today. We'll breathe again tomorrow. Breathe next week and next month, and the month after that. In routine cycles, it has kept on for centuries. But somewhere in that cycle, in 1 year or 100, or maybe several months, we don't know when, the breathing will be replaced by the rupture. The instruments will register in real time. The 70 million people in the footprint will have only seconds warning before it hits. And between 15 and 25 minutes on the outer coast act to the shaking warning to get to higher ground, if even they are able to. What determines how many of them are still alive on the morning of the second day? What determines how many of them are going to be still alive on the morning of the second day? That is the work of the preparation that's being done right now, before the rupture begins. What should be done right now, today? This preparation should be done today, yet it's not being done. It's not being done because, one, there's not funding, and the seismology agencies are saying, oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen in your lifetime, when they don't know the day or the time. They have no idea at all. The problem is this: the clock is still running. The fault, 320 years past its release date. The fault is 321 years past its release date. That's exactly what the science says it would be. Basically staring at us, staring down at us, daring us to do something to save ourselves. Daring for us to do something that will save ourselves. That's where we're at. Where are you at, guys? Where are you at in Cascadia preparation? I know for a fact that a lot of you are in the Cascadia region. I know for a fact that a lot of you are in the Cascadia subduction zone region. Over the years of this program, I've known that. I've been told that by a lot of you that live here. Guys, please, please send me information to my email. You see my email scrolling across the bottom of your screen. rltnspdema@gmail.com. Send me information, what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're hearing about earthquake preparation, what you're hearing about those towers that should be built, what you're seeing in your communities of preparation to prepare people for what's going to happen. It could be days, weeks, or months away. It could be years away. We don't know. But we need to be prepared for whatever happens. That's a fact. That's a fact. Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has told us to prepare. Prepare for every day of our lives. Prepare for eternity. Be prepared for eternity, guys. We need to be prepared for whatever happens. May God bless you. May God be with you this day and always. I want to thank Canadian Patriot One, who's over on the east coast of Canada. He said when Cascadia goes, there will be total carnage, as not only will the coastline be devastated, but the possibility of the nuclear power plants and the faults becoming compromised and going critical. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. What happens to the rest of us when these plants go critical? No, we're not going to be reached possibly by a tsunami, but the nuclear material from the compromised power plants can reach us, will reach us. What are we going to do about it? Canadian Patriot 1 says, being prepared in advance of a disaster is key to your chances of survival. That's absolutely the truth. Now, guys, I want to thank someone for alerting me to this happening. I got a message on my phone from one of my dearest friends over here on the west coast of North America in Washington State. Washington State, guys. He's also felt these earthquakes. I had him on the air once briefly. He might be coming on there again soon. He might be coming on there again soon. But he's the one who alerted me to what's happening. Captain Ned. Captain Ned. He's the one that gave me the heads up about all this, and I've done research ever since then. May God bless you guys, and I'm serious about this. God bless you. Prepare now. Prepare now. I've said that for 6.5, 7 years now. I mean it. I mean that right now. Prepare now, guys. You may not get another chance. You may not get another chance. If you guys want to help support this channel, go to our PayPal here. You see scrolling across the bottom of your screen here. Go to our PayPal and send us a donation to help support this program and keep it on there. We need it. We really need it. Also, you can send us a letter to our post office box, 504 Bethel Road, Box 401, Morganton, North Carolina, Morganton, North Carolina. Zip code here is 28655. It's been scrolling across the bottom of your screen all night long. Guys, you can send us a card or a letter. Inside your card or letter, you can stick a check or even cash and send it to us. We'd appreciate you send us a donation. Keep us on the air, guys. Helps keep us on the air. How's that? I pay $258 a month for bandwidth to broadcast. $258 a month for bandwidth. 1 gig of bandwidth. We need your help paying for it. I appreciate that, guys. I really do. May God bless you. May God be with us and always. God be with you until we meet again. I love you all. I love you all. May God bless and protect you. God be with you until we meet again. We'll see you on the other side. Good night, everybody. Much love. See you soon. Have fun. Good night.
Here at Emergency Management Associates, we're dedicated and true, bringing you the essential knowledge, helping you see things through. From disaster preparedness to navigating recovery's embrace, we're here to guide you in every unpredictable time and place. We break down the complex, make it easy to grasp and absorb, sharing strategies for safety, the vital lessons you can't afford to hoard, So thank you for watching, and thank you so much for your sub. You're a key part of our growing family, a member of our knowledge club. With every like, every share, and every comment you send our way, our critical message spreads further, helping more people every single day. Together we're stronger and more prepared. That's the truth we all abide. You help us build resilience with management truly inspires us. Your feedback acts as a guiding light, helping us continually grow and making our channel's future bright. We're always learning, always striving to be better. Bring you the most up-to-date information, no matter the weather. Emergency Management Associates is here for you now and forever, it's true. Keep watching, keep learning, because we truly appreciate all that you do. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. We love you. Have a good night.